Now we shall take up the second fundamental proposition. The second fundamental proposition. The eternity of the universe. This is what the second fundamental proposition gives. The eternity of the universe completely and including all parts is a boundless plane. It is periodically the playground of numerous universes, incessantly manifesting and disappearing. These universes are called manifesting stars and sparks of eternity. The eternity of the pilgrim monad is like a wink of the eye of self-existence. The appearance and disappearance of worlds is like a regular tidal ebb of flux and reflux. So this is what the second fundamental proposition is talking about. We have talked about the eternity of the universe in the first fundamental proposition. So the eternity of the universe completely and including all parts is a boundless plane. It is a boundless plane. It is periodically the playground of numerous universes, incessantly manifesting and disappearing. These universes are called manifesting stars and sparks of eternity. The eternity of the pilgrim, that is monad, is like a wink of the eye of self-existence. The monad lives on till he achieves perfection, but his existence, when compared to the existence of the manifesting stars or sparks of eternity, is like a wink of eye of self-existence. Self-existence means the universal being. When compared to the universal being, the eternity of the pilgrim, the monad, is like a wink of the eye of self-existence. Then, the appearance and disappearance of worlds, universes, is like a regular tidal ebb of flux and reflux. The appearance and disappearance at periodical intervals of the worlds or universes is like a regular tidal ebb of flux and reflux. This second assertion, Madame Blavatsky explains, is the absolute universality of that law of periodicity. There is a law of periodicity, and she says, Madame Blavatsky says, the second assertion that Madame Blavatsky explains is the absolute universality of that law of periodicity. The ebb and flow, the flex and reflex are observed and recorded in all departments of nature by the physicists. The appearance and the disappearance of the worlds, of the universes, they are compared to the ebb and flow of an ocean or the flex and reflex of motion. They are observed and recorded in all departments of nature by the physicists, means people who have understood and propagated physics. Alteration such as that of day and night, life and death, sleeping and waking, or alteration such as that of alternation. Alternation means appearing as day and night, life and death, sleeping and waking are perfectly universal and without exception. In this we see the absolutely fundamental laws of the universe. This is the second proposition, which talks about periodical appearance of universes and disappearance of the universes on the boundless plane of the eternity of the universe. The eternity of the universe completely and including of all parts is a boundless plane. It is periodically the playground of numerous universes, incessantly manifesting and disappearing. These universes are called manifesting stars and sparks of eternity. When compared to the universal being, the eternity, the pilgrim or the monad is like a wink of the eye of self existence. Something like a wink of the eye of self existence is the eternity of the pilgrim. The monad, we all understand, will reach perfection after so many births, but then the time taken by a monad is like the eye, the wink of an eye of self existence. So the appearance and disappearance of worlds in constant appearance and disappearance is like a regular tidal ebb and flux of the ebb and flow of the ocean. So, this is the second assertion or second fundamental proposition Madam Blavatsky wants us all to understand. Madam Blavatsky says these three fundamental propositions are to be understood, are to be completely understood very carefully by all those people who would like to study theosophy. It is not just for studying secret doctrine that these three fundamental propositions are relevant. They're relevant for understanding any concept of theosophy. That's what Madam Blavatsky had told her disciples. So, the second fundamental proposition is talking about eternity of the universe. And the first talked about the existence of Parabrahman. So the second one talked about, second fundamental proposition talked about the eternity of the universe in toto, which is actually a boundless plane. Boundless plane means nobody can draw boundaries to that particular plane on which periodically, as if it's a playground, as if that boundless plane is a playground, the numberless universes incessantly keep on appearing, manifesting, and also disappear after some time or existing for some time. So, the eternity of a pilgrim, a person who is called the monad, is actually monad has to be understood as Atma Buddhi Manas. So, that's the monad. The monad takes on various births, various incarnations before he reaches perfection. And that time which is taken by the Atma Buddhi Manas, which is also called the eternal principle, which is also called the monad, it is compared to, that life of that monad is compared to the wink of the eye of self existence. So, Parabrahman is a creation, and Parabrahman creates through his ideation the consciousness that is ideation, and the matter that is the universe comes as a combination of spirit and matter aided by Fohath. So, all these appearances come at different periodical intervals. So, this is what this second fundamental proposition is talking about. The appearance and disappearance of the worlds or universes is like the ebb and flow or the flux and reflux of an ocean. We see an ocean having these two ebb and flows, the flux and reflux, the coming out and going in. That's something very similar to the ocean's ebb and flow. That is how the appearance of the or disappearance of the worlds or universe is taking place. This second assertion or second fundamental proposition of the secret doctrine is talking about that absolute universality of the law of periodicity, which the physical sciences also have recognized. This coming into and going back from the boundless plane is a phenomena which happens at ordained periodical intervals. This appearance and disappearance or coming forth and going back of the universes from a universal phenomena which happens at ordained periodical intervals. It's similar to our day and night. We have a day, we have a night. Day is the time when the universe has come into existence. Night is comparable to the time when the universe disappeared. So, when compared to a day and night in a man's life, the appearance is related to day and the disappearance is related to the night. So, it's similar to our day and night, life and death. When someone is living, we call that person is living. When somebody dies, we say he is dead. So life is appearance, death is disappearance. Sleeping and waking. When someone is sleeping during night time, it is withdrawal, and waking up in the morning is appearance. So the appearance and disappearance at periodical intervals, though these two things or three things explained in a man's life, we're only talking about it in such fashion to understand what it means for the universes to appear, what it means the universes to disappear. It is very similar to, is what we are saying. So, this is what is the second fundamental proposition. So, this process is so common, so perfectly applicable to all beings on the universe. This process is so common, so perfectly applicable to all beings on the universe. Universe, uni-verse. There are no exceptions to this. There is only one way in which the universe can come into being. So, there are no exceptions to this law. What is born has to die and disappear. Similarly, what has come out from the superideation and supermatter also disappears. And when it appears, it's called manifestation. When it's disappearing, it's called pralaya. This is the second fundamental proposition. This concept is easy to comprehend, but leaving the universe or dying is the difficult aspect of life. Leaving or dying is the difficult aspect of life. At the appointed time, the life principle will make an exit and travels upwards. So we can understand what is living, what is life, but to understand the concept of death is sometimes difficult for a person who doesn't know the details. So this concept is easy to comprehend, but leaving the universe, living in the universe is understandable, but leaving the universe or dying is the difficult aspect of life which man is not able to understand and comprehend. At the appointed time, the life principle will make an exit and travels upwards. If we imagine and think, why is it difficult to accept this law easily, is we are attached to a lot of physical objects, persons, wealth, so many things. Our physical body, which can recognize all this, also conveys a wrong message suggesting all this is true. Why are we finding it difficult to leave this world? At the appointed time, the life principle will make an exit and travels upwards. If you imagine and think why it's difficult for us to accept death or accept this law easily, is we are attached a lot to the physical objects, persons, wealth, so many things which are physical in nature. Our physical body, which can recognize all this, also conveys a wrong message suggesting all this which disappears is true. All this which disappears is eternal. But it is not so. This is Bhranti Darshana. In Sanskrit, it is called Bhranti Darshana. Means a darshana which is considered as Bhranti, means something which is not true has been understood as true. So this is called Bhranti Darshana. When we learn to leave our bondage, when we learn to leave what we are attached to this physical and physical attributes, physical assets, physical attachments, and detach ourselves from what is transient, what is temporary, what is dying, withdrawing from the world is easy. So what we are seeing is Bhranti Darshana, and we imagine all this which we see, all this which we touch, all this is true, but it is not. This is something which will disappear one day. So this is Bhranti Darshana. Bhranti means imagining something which is not true as true. Bhranti is actually not having the right understanding. We have a misunderstanding, and the darshana which is caused is because of Bhranti. Bhranti is not properly understanding what is truth. So when we learn to leave our physical attachment, when we leave our bondages to these physical assets or physical attachments and detach ourselves from what is transient, temporary, dying, and withdrawing, leaving this world will be easy. Due to attachment, what needs to be inculcated is, due to attachment, we have a problem. If we do not have attachment, perhaps leaving this world, like the universe disappears after a certain time of existence, so easily we also can leave. This law of periodicity, this fact of coming and going, should become practical in our lives. This is the practical part of our life. The second fundamental proposition, which talks about periodicity of appearance and disappearance, is actually related to man. Related to man. When he is living, he is getting attached to a lot of physical objects, persons, and wealth. So when he leaves all this, when he develops the detachment to all this, leaving this world becomes easy. So due attachment is what is needed. Attachment to the extent which is permitted is what is needed. Due attachment is what is needed. This has to be inculcated by man. So this law of periodicity and this fact of coming and going should become practical part of our life. Whether it is the principle of oneness, eternal, immutable, or this law of periodicity, this essence should be part of our life. This law of periodicity, that is living for some time, coming into the world, living for some time, and disappearing, whether it is man or universe, whether it is any being, this law of periodicity, this fact of coming and going should become practical, and it should be part of our life. This is the lesson for us. Whether it is the principle of oneness, eternity, or immutable, all this are part of the Parabrahman. The law of periodicity, the essence, should be part of our life. So this is in essence, the second fundamental proposition. So this is talking about the periodical appearance and disappearance of the universe, and periodical appearance and disappearance of all that is part of this universe, including man. This is the second fundamental proposition. Then we move on to the third fundamental proposition, the universal oversoul. This is the third fundamental proposition. The universal oversoul is itself an aspect of the unknown root. Vishwatma, the universal oversoul, is itself an aspect of the unknown root. We don't know how that Vishwatma has formed. What is the reason for the Vishwatma to be formed? What is the root cause of all that? That's what it means. The universal oversoul is itself an aspect of the unknown root. All souls in the manifested universe have a fundamental identity with this universal oversoul. All souls in this manifested universe, that is all of us, have a fundamental identity with this universal oversoul. The universal oversoul is itself an aspect of the unknown or Parabrahman, and we do not know the root cause of it. But all souls which are appearing in this manifested universe have a fundamental identity. They identify themselves with the universal soul. This is something which we need to understand. Every soul which is spark of the oversoul, every soul which is a spark of the universal soul, or every soul which is spark of the divine, has an obligatory pilgrimage. Every soul which is spark of the oversoul has an obligatory pilgrimage. This pilgrimage, this journey is through the cycle of incarnation or necessity. Every soul which is appearing in this manifested universe is a spark of the oversoul or a spark of the divine, is a spark of the universal oversoul. And each of these souls has an obligatory pilgrimage. This is not optional, mind you. This is obligatory pilgrimage. This pilgrimage, this journey is through the cycle of incarnation or necessity. So it is in cycle of incarnations this soul travels. This soul undertakes the obligatory pilgrimage. So every soul which is spark of the divine has an obligatory pilgrimage. This pilgrimage, this journey is through the cycle of incarnation, or it is also called the cycle of necessity. This proceeds during the whole term in accordance with the cyclic and karmic law. This whole proceeds, this whole journey is proceeding. That means this proceeds during the whole term, during the entire obligatory pilgrimage. This proceeds in the entire obligatory pilgrimage in accordance with the cyclic and karmic law. So the karmic law guides it, and the coming again and going of the soul is necessitated by the obligatory pilgrimage. The spark issued or emanating from the oversoul, the pure essence of the universal sixth principle, has to pass through every elemental form of the phenomenal world of that Manvantara. The spark issued or emanating from the oversoul, that is pure essence of the universal sixth principle, has to pass through every elemental form of the phenomenal world of that Manvantara. Secondly, the soul acquires individuality first by natural impulse, then by self-induced and self-devised efforts checked by its karma, thus ascending through all degrees of intelligence, from the lowest to the highest manas, from mineral and plant up to the holiest archangel, Dhyani Buddha. So this is how the progress is of man. The soul acquires individuality first by natural impulse. Naturally, the individuality is there, but for the man to understand that individuality, it takes time. Then by self-induced and self-devised efforts. So man has to work, man has to do that sadhana, man has to acquire the necessary knowledge. So through efforts, through parishrama, self-induced action and self-devised efforts, something which he has done all by himself. Yes, there could be a guru who could have guided him, but the action has to be done all by himself. The guru only shows the way, but the person has to act, and so it is all self-devised efforts and self-induced efforts. So these are all checked by its karma. The soul has a karma. The karmic law is something which guides the soul or which influences the soul. So the individuality which first happens by natural impulse is not realized by the individual soul. Then through self-induced efforts and self-devised efforts, checked by or guided by karma, thus ascending through all degrees of intelligence, So, helped by the karma, helped by his efforts, he ascends through all degrees of intelligence from the lowest to the highest manas. So, he keeps moving from the lowest to the highest manas, from mineral and plant up to the holiest archangel, Jnani Buddha. Then only the purely spiritual Buddhi, the divine soul, can have an independent, conscious existence. So, till such time, it is dependent and it is related to the universal soul. The universal soul is the Vishwatma, and all souls have emanated from the Vishwatma, and all independent souls have a relationship with that universal soul or Vishwatma. So every soul which has been separated, which has come down, is called the spark of the divine, a spark of the Vishwatma, a spark of the oversoul, and it has to perform an obligatory pilgrimage. This is something which we have to understand very, very clearly. It's an obligatory journey, it's an obligatory pilgrimage. He's a pilgrim, the monad is a pilgrim. So it's an obligatory pilgrimage. This pilgrimage, this journey is through the cycle of incarnations. So he takes number of births to perfect himself, and it is also called the cycle of necessity. It's important, it's necessary for him to take so many lives to evolve. So that's called cycle of necessity. And this journey proceeds during the whole term. That means the whole term by which the spark of the divine becomes perfect. It takes maybe many births, whatever may be the time of the pilgrimage. This journey proceeds during the whole term in accordance with the cyclic and karmic laws. So there is a karmic law, there is a cyclicity of that particular law which is operating, and because of the actions which the individual has performed, the coming and going and the living and leaving happens. The spirit issued from the oversoul, the spirit emanating from the oversoul, which is the pure essence of the universal sixth principle, has to pass through every elemental form of the phenomenal world. Phenomenal world means the world where everything is an objective world of this Manvantara. Then, secondly, acquire individuality by natural impulse. Naturally, he is becoming aware of that individuality, but to realize completely, he has to work very sincerely and through self induced efforts and self devised efforts, checked by, aided by the law of karma. This happens. This process of growing happens. This ascending through all degrees of intelligence. He has to pass through the levels of intelligence. He has to move from the physical, the grossest physical, to the highest degree. So, this moving, this ascending through all degrees of intelligence, from the lowest to the highest manas, from mineral and plant up to the holistic, holiest, not holistic, holiest archangel, Jnani Buddha. So, the ultimate journey is completed when the soul becomes a Dhyani Buddha. Then only the purely spiritual Buddhi, the divine soul, can have an independent conscious existence. At the time when he becomes Dhyani Buddha, his journey is complete and he can have an independent conscious existence. There are no privileges or special gifts for man. He has to go through the whole process like any other kingdom. There are no privileges or special gifts for man, and he has to win them by his own ego through personal effort and merit. Everybody has to put in effort, everybody has to work hard, everybody has to earn his place. So there is no automatic sanctioning or gifting for man. There are no privileges or special gifts for man, and he has to win them by his own ego through personal effort and merit. He should merit, means he should get that arhata, he should get that eligibility to become the Dhyani Buddha. So there are no privileges or special gifts for man, and he has to win them by his own ego through personal efforts and merit, through a long series of metempsychosis and reincarnations. So reincarnation is the process, coming again, maybe learning few things, going back and adding that into the causal body, the essence of it into the causal body, coming back with those faculties again the second time, and still moving towards perfection. That's how the journey goes on till such time he becomes a holiest archangel, the Dhyani Buddha. So Madam Blavatsky here says, Hindus say that universe is Brahman, and Brahman for Brahman is in every atom of the universe. Parabrahman. Same thing, she called it as Brahman here. Madam Blavatsky adds, Hindus say that universe is Brahman, Brahman is universe. So that's how they understand. Parabrahma is universe. Universe is Parabrahma. So every atom of the universe is belonging to the Parabrahman. The six principles in nature are the outcome. The six principles of nature are the outcome, variously differentiated aspects or planes. The six principles in nature are the outcome, variously differentiated planes or aspects. And the seventh one, the one reality in the universe, whether cosmic or microcosmic, is the seventh one. So there are seven principles in all, and the sixth principle is what we are talking about, and the natural impulse is not that easily grasped by the individual, and he becomes perfect because there is no gift to a man, there is no sanctioning of anything to a man. He has to earn that place, he has to work hard to be there. So he has to put in his personal efforts, self-induced efforts, self-devised efforts to reach, helped by the karma which he has done in the previous incarnation. So that karma which he has done in the previous incarnation helps him to lead this present life. So we have to be careful with our actions. Madam Blavatsky, she talked about the Parabrahman as Hindus describe it, and the sixth principles in nature are the outcome, variously differentiated aspects and planes of the seventh and one, the only reality in the universe, whether cosmic or microcosmic. Microcosm is man. Cosmic universality is Parabrahman. The permutations, psychic, spiritual, and physical, on the plane of manifestation, the permutations or combinations of psychic, spiritual, and physical on the plane of manifestation and form of the sixth Brahma, the vehicle of Brahman, that is the Buddhic plane, are viewed by metaphysical antiphrasis as elusive and mayavik. It is full of maya. So, the sixth principle, Brahma, the vehicle of Brahman, Atma has no vehicle. We have seen it number of times. Atma functions through Buddhi. So, the sixth principle that is viewed by metaphysical as elusive and mayavik. It is elusive. It is full of illusion because we are not able to say it as reality unless we touch that fringe or touch that plane. The root of every atom, individually and of every form collectively, is the seventh principle or the one reality. The root of every atom individually, that means each individual soul, the root of every atom individually, and of every form. So many forms are there, including mineral, vegetable, animal, man. So many forms are there. So, the root of every atom individually, every atom and its root individually, and of every form collectively is the seventh principle or the one reality. That is Atmic principle. And yet, in its manifested phenomenal or temporary appearance, it is no better than an evanescent, momentary, or transitory illusion of our senses. And yet, in its manifested phenomenon, when the Atmic principle has manifested, has come into being, as appearing as a form, that object, that phenomena is temporary in its appearance, because it has come, it has to go. It has taken birth, it has to die. So, that's a temporary appearance. It is no better than evanescent, that is momentary or transitory illusion of our senses. Our senses are able to realize certain things and think they are real, but actually what the senses realize are illusion. They are not real. So similarly, the temporary appearance of these manifested phenomena or objects are no better than the momentary, transitory illusion of our senses. Like our senses imagine certain things which are not real, all these phenomena, all these objects which are appearing in the physical manifested universe are also transitory, not eternal. They die. They have birth, they also have death. The one principle under its two aspects, the Parabrahman and the Moola Prakriti. This is important. The one principle under its two aspects, the Parabrahman and the Moola Prakriti, is sexless, unconditional, and eternal. The one principle under its two aspects, the Parabrahman and Moola Prakriti, is sexless, unconditional, and eternal. That's why we say the Parabrahman, it is he or she or it, we do not know. The Parabrahman, whether it is he or she or it, we do not know. It is sexless. It's just a bundle of energy or a huge conglomeration of all the atoms which are available in all these universes. Not just our universe, but so many universes put together. So this one principle under its two aspects, the Parabrahman and Moola Prakriti, the root matter, that means, is sexless, unconditional, and eternal. So there are no conditions for that. Only if this condition is satisfied, this eternal principle is functioning, we cannot say. It is unconditional, it is eternal, and it is sexless. Its periodical manvantaric emanation or primal radiation is also one. Its periodical manvantaric emanation or primal radiation is also one. Androgynous means genderless. To become a male and female principle in their lower aspects. So, its periodical manvantaric emanation or primal radiation is also one. There are no two in it. Atma has no sex, no male and no female. So, the primal radiation is also one. It is androgynous, means genderless. So we cannot call the Atma the male Atma or the female Atma. So only when it comes lower down into the physical, we differentiate, saying one is male, the other is female. So this is how we understand. The third proposition, the fundamental proposition, is talking about the existence of universal soul, the Vishwatma, or the existence of every other soul, which is spark of the oversoul, and there is a connection between the oversoul and the individual soul. So, this is how we understand the third fundamental proposition. To those who are interested in the Indian system of thought, we can also say, we can understand these principles which you have enunciated so far as the first principle, the first fundamental principle is showing us what is ekata, oneness, togetherness. To arrive at this ekata, that's why I said the fundamental proposition, the first fundamental proposition is all the more important for us to understand very deeply. So, this first fundamental proposition is talking about ekata or oneness or togetherness. And then the second fundamental proposition talks about the universe is appearing and disappearing at periodical intervals. So there is an order, there is a method in which these universes come and universes go. When they come, they are born, they exist for some time, which is life, and then they disappear when it is called pralaya. Man, when he appears, he is called to have taken birth, and then he lives for some time, and then he makes an exit. That is death. So there is kramata, orderliness or periodicity. So first one is called ekata or oneness or togetherness. Second one is called kramata. These are all Sanskrit terms meaning order, periodicity. And then there is a samata, means the individual soul is getting or is related to the universal soul. The individual soul, all the individual souls are related to the universal soul, the Vishwatma. So that is samata, coming together, identifying with the universal soul or becoming part and parcel of the universal soul. That happens. So this is called samata or identity or coming together. So there are also similarity with the terms of the first fundamental proposition, which is called ekata. The second fundamental principle is called kramata. The third fundamental principle is named as samata, which means the individual soul has got equation with the universal soul. So this is the third fundamental proposition we're talking about. So the third proposition talks about the identity of all souls with that universal soul, universal oversoul. Universal oversoul is an aspect of the unknown root. We do not know. It is rootless root, but we do not know how that appears, how it looks like, whether it is man or a female or it's just an object, we do not know. The obligatory pilgrimage of every soul is a fact of necessity. It is something which each soul has to undertake. This pilgrimage is not optional. It is a pilgrimage of coming and going. Each soul has to undergo this journey. Each individual soul is the spark of the divine or Vishwatma. The individuality to the soul is being achieved. The individuality to the soul is being achieved not just because it has taken birth, but when the journey through elemental kingdoms is accomplished and he puts in a lot of hard work, self-induced efforts. So that sadhana makes him realize what exactly that nature of his being, nature of his soul is all about. So in the individuality of the soul is being achieved through sadhana. When the journey through the elemental kingdoms is accomplished, that is, the soul passes through the mineral, vegetable, animal kingdoms, that means the group soul, and then graduating into individual soul in the form of man. The journey of man, coming and returning, is as per the karmic law or as guided by the karmic law or the law of periodicity. Secret doctrine says the individualization for the first time is through the natural impulse. It is the natural impulse, natural force, which has created that individual spark of the divine. That's the spark of the divine has happened because of the natural impulse. Next time onwards, Next time onwards, if the soul has to grow, has to really move upwards, next time onwards, the development of the soul is by self devised efforts through right actions, right karma. Thus, ascending through the degrees of intelligence which are marked in each plane, from the lowest to the highest manas, from the mineral, plant, animal, man, and up to becoming Dhyani Buddha, the archangel. He has to journey, and then he becomes individual consciousness. The important doctrine doesn't grant any special privilege to man. The important doctrine doesn't grant, because he is man, any special privileges or gifts. Everybody is treated alike. So we may not think, or we should not think, being man, we are superior. We are not superior. We are part of the universe. So everything has got its place. Man also has its place. The important doctrine is that man is not granted any special privileges or gifts, but we have the choice of choosing our incarnation by modifying or regulating our actions. We have only this choice. We have this choice of regulating or choosing our incarnation by modifying or regulating our actions, karma. The Hindus say Brahma, Brahman is universe, and universe is Brahma. This is what the Hindus believe. And every atom of this universe is part of that Brahma. Every living being is part of that Parabrahma. So the universe is governed by 7 principles we know or can feel through our efforts, all the 5 principles. But the 6th and 7th are higher planes, the Adi, Anupadaka, especially Adi. So, this is what we are talking about. We know or feel, we can actually experience the 5 principles. The 6th and 7th are beyond us, the Adi and Anupadaka, especially the Adi. And one reality is still not known to us. And that is the primary object of the Theosophical Society, is to promote that oneness. So we do not know what it means to be part of the whole other living beings. We do not know. In fact, with our own existence of mankind, we are not together because of our selfish ideas. We differentiate or we differ from each other. So, how to understand that the entire universe is one and the entire creation is one? So, we do not know the one reality, and that's not a fact to us. And that is fact at the Adi level. At the Adi level. The 7th principle is the one reality. Adi means the beginning. So that is a reality at Adi level. So the 7th principle is the one reality, and what we know through description, nobody has really experienced. Anupadaka, yes, the grown-up initiates their people who are part of the Anupadaka. But Adi, nobody has experienced, and that is a field of the Parabrahman. The one principle which we are talking about, the universal principle, the Vishwatma, is sexless. So we cannot say Parabrahman is he, a Parabrahman is she, a Parabrahman is it. It doesn't fall into any of the linga bedhas. Strilinga, Pumlinga, or Napumsakalinga. We cannot say any of those things are true as far as the universal Parabrahman is concerned. These are all the basic fundamental propositions which Madame Blavatsky has given in her Secret Doctrine in the proem, which we need to understand very well, she says. It's not just enough to read through them, but we have to understand them thoroughly. We have to understand them thoroughly and keep them in the background whenever we try to study a subject of theosophy. Not just Secret Doctrine. The subject of theosophy can be better understood if we have these 3 fundamental propositions at the back of our mind. Thank you.